and then you can just last pick really anything. The set takeaway is very, very good, and I'm very happy that we see that here, which can also still go a number of places, as I would be very happy to see Efforts Gragas. I think it's real good, and it does provide even more hard engage for the classic Live sandbox style. This is a bit more proactive than the Orianna, and personally I like this a lot more.
Yeah, I love Gragas as well into Diana. If she uses, you know, her E after she uses the reset at E, then it can get her out of the fray. Also, if you can predict when she's going to throw out the ultimate and get a barrel in there, then she can look a little bit silly, which is certainly going to be good news. TWon thinking about heading towards a Lulu, which is making me feel like we are going to get the Lee Sin center bottom lane. Of course, Faker, the most famous Lulu player in the universe, assuming League of Legends isn't on a different planet, which I assume is correct. So therefore, Faker could be playing it, but might be the Jace in the mid lane as well. I'm expecting Lulu for Faker, but we have seen more Lulu top lane, and so maybe I don't get my wish.
I agree with you. I think that the Jace has a lot more punish potential, even though Lulu wins the early game. Obviously, relatively soon she gets to a point where she doesn't really do anything against the Nine, you just kind of have to survive. And Jace mid has not been doing really well in the LCK.
No.
Like, I love her Jaces, you know, I'm okay with the...
There it is.
Okay.
Obviously it was going to happen. We were doubting ourselves for a second, and I go into my spiel about the best Lulu in the universe, or most famous Lulu in the universe, and then it was going to be played by Canna. That would be unfortunate. That's like talking about Showmaker's Akali and then Khan playing it. Oh wait, that did happen, and that was me, and I'm a bit silly. But Live Sandbox, I like their composition, certainly a lot more standard than what we see out of T1. A little bit more cutting-edge strategies and dark technology going on over there. As we can see, it's the Diana that has been very popular here in the LCK, but certainly a comp that can make Teddy extraordinarily strong and is capable of a few different playstyles. Don't mind the team fight. I like their laning phase. I think it should be able to get Cuz towards that level 6 and find some comfort in that jungle on the Diana. But let's see what happens as we hop into game number 1.
So many questions going into this game, Atlas, because if I look at the individual matchups, I think it's... There we go. Very nice carrier. Spam that. If we look at the individual matchups, I think bot lane is kind of a snooze fest, because even though Lee Sin would want to go... Just trying to talk about your bot lane carrier. What are you doing?
That's so good. I'm really glad that we get a redo of this, though, because when KT played it, they got kind of crushed by, you know, ganks, and the lane was kind of over before it even began. So we didn't even really get to learn very much about how that bottom lane really goes.
And the problem is, I think, in this scenario, it will be kind of similar in that if Effort and Prince play it well, this should just be a farm lane. Gragas, his counter engage is really hard, I think, for a Lee Sin to deal with. Unless we see any jungle attention, I don't expect it to be a big bloodbath in the bot lane. I expect Teddy to just want to play for souls initially, carry out wanting to get fed. And it's kind of a similar situation between the Lulu and the Set, where the Lulu is literally just early on in lane, she's going to poke, especially with Irie taking here. Also, Gathering Storms, very happy to see those on both Canna and Faker, because this is looking like a game where, as honestly both teams, you kind of wanted to go into the late game, although for very different reasons. But then if you look at the 2v2, mid-jungle is not great, but then once you add Canna into the mix on the top side, it's a different equation, right? And like, there's a lot of plug-and-play available with these compositions based on who is where, as the fact that Prince and Effort had to leash is being well utilized here, combined with the strong level 1 that the center provides.
Yep. There's a good body slam, though, from Effort, as the backup is going to be there. However, of course, Piercing Darkness makes this lane feel pretty rough for Live Sandbox there on the bottom side. Looking forward to seeing whether we are going to see any ganks here towards the bottom side. It's going to be very interesting. But already T1 certainly pushing extremely hard as Carrier just wanders up to the turret and safeguards away.
And as T1, you also feel safe here, right? Because you saw the leash come through, and there is a world in which Croco does like a cheesy gank towards bot side, you know, paths on, and then Effort engages. But we know that's not the case at all. T1 is making the same assumption based on the fact that it is generally better for the Udyr to just start power clearing. So it's pathing towards top side, Kana will have the cover of Kaz, although I think initially that is a scary matchup for the Diana, not nearly as strong in terms of dueling potential as the Udyr will be until she gets a couple more levels and items under her belt.
Yep. That's why I feel like T1 making sure that they have as much priority all over their lanes as possible is going to be very helpful here for Kaz, who so far is 100% win rate on the Diana, so doing pretty well on it thus far. As he is going to find Croco here, and is, I believe, was he able to steal that one away? Yes, he was. It's always hard to know where that gold comes up from, but certainly fantastically done there from Kaz, already putting pressure on here from the jungle, and it might be a double scuttle. It looks like he is going to forego the Krug camp and head down there. Do have some pings out as Croco is completely known to Faker. As no, Kaz just going to head back towards topside, just go for the easier play. As Croco also ignoring that bottom scuttle. Kaz going to get that ward in at exactly the right time. Croco now in a little bit of trouble. Bear Slap comes out. Now the flash has to be used. Kaz going to follow him as well. Throws out the E. He's going to land the Q as he's ran out of gap close, and now Croco's in trouble. Glitterlance comes on through, and Faker gets the first blood. Fate now in a whole bunch of trouble as Kana looks for the Shock Blast, but the Haymaker is going to be there. Good face breaker as well, as Faker's just, yeah, he's getting a lot of help from picks here as Fate is not enjoying his time.
A tragedy for Croco there, because I think, like you and me, he was expecting Kaz to path towards bot side.
Yeah, right.
Go for the double scuttle, and that means that you can go for a punish. But a beautiful read from Kaz, who instead of going for the more obvious option in path and bot side, picking up that scuttle, is going to the Krog scam that he hadn't taken yet, because of course Udyr farms or clears a lot quicker. Early on, a perfectly positioned ward at just the right time allows him to spot Croco. And yeah, if you're already running away, there's not that much you can do. Great use of the prior by T1, and a solid start of the early game here.
Yeah, really nicely done. I like that. I feel like Kaz's brain has expanded a lot over the last couple of years. I think that's been the biggest thing. We've always known that his mechanics are good, but sometimes he found himself on awkward parts of the map and wasn't really making plays when he was supposed to. I feel like his game sense has really leveled up over the last little while. But let's have a look at this one more time. The flash over, follow flash there from Kaz. And then Faker just walks on in and says, thank you very much for my first blood.
Really, not a lot to be done there. Fate can't join that fight earlier on. At that point, if you go in without any backup, you're just going to get polymorphed and not be able to get anything done. Really, the only downside of that play for T1 is that the kill went to the Lulu, which, if it goes to Diana, you're a lot happier, but it's not the end of the world. It still gets you a nice early game gold lead. The prior from T1 in every lane is working out very well.
Do you know what the real negative is? Kaz wasn't able to go back and get his Dark Seal before he could get some stacks on it. Oh, sorry, Faker wasn't able to go back and get the Dark Seal beforehand, so misses out on that. So that's the biggest failure. I actually think, like, I don't know, maybe it's because of past Faker Lulus, right? But I don't feel bad about Faker getting kills on Lulu ever, just because he can be so oppressive. As we've got a teleport coming back in here for Kana. Get himself up there, does have, of course, his tier ready to stack up, and the Serrated Dirk. Perfect back timing here for the Jace. As got the Lee Sin support stat, which hasn't been played for almost 3,000 days. It was Marta, of course, against Gorilla when he was on Najin White Shield, I believe.
Isn't it incredible?
What's up with the H? Maybe it's a team that that's escaped my brain because it was so long ago.
There's been so many iterations with like different letters and numbers and versions, so I can't really hold that against you. What's really interesting to me is that we now have like fasting Senna, right? So supports playing champions like this makes a bit more sense, but that wasn't the case back then.
Yeah. I believe that was Samsung Blue as well. Awesome. Samsung White? Samsung White. It's always hard to remember which Samsung, especially when Deft played on blue and then Marta played on white, and then they played together for so long. And so it's like, they were on different teams though, because of course, Deft and Hart and Imp and Marta. So Samsung White for Marta there was, I believe, able to pick up the victory with the support Lee Sin in what was probably one of those Marta games, which we remember very fondly. As here's a bit of an engage towards the bottom side. Good snare onto effort there as Carrier. Just going to whip him around a little. But T1 should be able to regen a bit, and also that Piercing Darkness value for the extra damage onto effort was certainly good, as level 6 is hit by Carrier. I like that effort backs away. Sort of knew that that level 6 was right around the corner. So not going to fall for it.
I'm honestly just excited to see Carrier and Lee Sin, because Carrier is so good. So like, seeing him on a champion with this much skill expression just makes me really, really happy. And as we get towards level 6 across the board, only the bot lanes haven't reached it yet and will soon. So we can see that Teddy is fairly close. Prince just now dinging 6 as well. And the first Drake of the game hasn't been taken yet.
Okay. Carrier's just going to solo kill on the bottom side of the map. We will get a replay of that one. Jonas Strong, I forgive you. I don't think any of us were expecting Carrier just to murder Prince. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to need a moment
maybe
that.
Maybe Carrier is just the best player in the world. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe we're going to watch this and it's just Prince making a little bit of a whoopsie. We'll just have to see. As Kaz is standing on a ward, not exactly ideal, as Effort, of course, is not in his lane. Otherwise, Prince might have been alive.
And Drake, what was the objective I was talking about earlier, but the Herald also a big one. We saw how high the first Herald percentage was, as a lot of action possible here.
Yeah, in goes Effort. Great body slam onto the two members as Teddy's going to have to flash away, but Croco's right over the top. This is going to be the first kill for Liv Sandbox. As in goes Fate, not going to get rewarded for it, as Kaz is going to have to run away, but now Kanna's in trouble. There's the ult right into the wall, as Fate does have the face breaker, so Kanna ain't getting out of this one. The flash comes on in, but the follow is going to be there. So Liv Sandbox evening out the kills nicely, and also the top lane state is an absolute abomination here for TWon as well, so that's going to be a lot missed for the Jace.
And it's yet again Effort with the roams, but first, let's take a look at this play.
잡았어. 캐리.
Just too easy. And that's the guaranteed play as well, because you get the mini stun into the wall by safeguarding in. As this is where it all goes a little bit backwards, because they don't have their Lee Sin King. As Kerry is in here, that is going to be the Rift Herald secured by Liv Sandbox. Cuz also going to be taken down. Kerry gets the heck out of there. And TWon making a couple of whoopsies, couple of blunders here in the earlier stages. Not really costing them too much when it comes to gold, but certainly that Rift Herald is going to be very valuable.
It's a testament to how far ahead TWon really was, that they're still ahead in gold after this. Again, it's Effort with these roams, and at this point you got to start expecting it if you're playing against them. The fact that he suddenly shows up on top lane, kind of a risky face check that gets appropriately punished. Kanna holding the flash there for really, really long. And this is such a high variance play, because Teddy isn't 6 yet, right? And 91 health when Kaz is done. And in the end, everything goes to Liv Sandbox and TWon trying to force too many times. And I don't really like it, because it feels you don't need to do this, T1. You can just give that Herald up. You had a great position to push on the rest of the map. Faker was in the side lane, but now use all these summoners. This is still a problem, this bot lane, because Carrier is very fed, and Prince and Effort are really going to have to respect that one.
Yeah, you can see Prince is like, he's ready to Arcane Shift away from Carrier at any opportunity. His Summit is, he actually picked this one up, as that's a lot of damage onto Kanna. And that is going to be a bunch of extra plates here for the Gnar, so feeling pretty good in this matchup. Not the way that we've seen the Jace Gnar go in a lot of instances, but as we mentioned before, it does depend on the Gnar and depend on the Jace in some of these situations, and also can depend on the jungler. As
Smite.
Teddy and Carrier, yep, they are going to be able to take this, as of course execute damage from the Resonating Strike. Going to be enough here for Carrier not to worry about the barrel.
Nice step from Effort. Still appreciate it, you know, the combination of going for the Exploding Cask with your charged up barrel. Maybe if he went the Lahen's way, you know, and he was AP Gragas, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
This scenario is not working out, unfortunately for him. Do think that, especially with how well Effort has been playing on these engages, I really like him going for the tank Aftershock Gragas build, which I feel like is generally stronger, but yeah, Lahen's is Lahen's, you know. He does what Lahen's will do.
Yeah, I think he defines dark technology as our friend Lahen's.
Imagine if the Elise randomly gets locked in after, I don't know how long.
Singe support. Give me the Singe support. That's what I want. Yeah, actually, I remember Lahen's, like, because he was, of course, like a two-trick Singed Elise in solo queue before he joined Griffin. But then he played some Elise support, and he'd, like, miss flash cocoons, but then they'd still win the games. It was very, very strange. just reminiscing here a little bit as the game has slowed down just a little. T1, of course, able to grab that Drake. Next one going to be a Mountain. As we check in on some of these items, Shirelia's Battle Song done for Faker as he continues to shove out this mid lane. And a bunch of other mythics have been completed. I believe Dash Cannon's done for Cuz. And Canna probably has his Eclipse. But we're going to have a look at some of the gold here. Advantage confusing on the bottom side of the map, so I'm not even really going to talk about it. But 1,000 gold here for Faker, who's grabbed a couple of plates, as well as that first blood, which has been certainly very valuable.
And we don't really know how these 5v5 fight are going to shape up. I think that Liv Sandbox have a comp that is way easier to execute, because it is very... What you see is what you get, right? Like you have a bunch of hard engage, you have deep dive, you have the big wombo combo ultimates.
Ooh,
Faker
Skippy gets himself out of there, no worries at all. He's boosting it. Thankfully, the battle song is going to mean that Faker's almost ungankable, as Cuz is going to be able to grab that Rift Scuttler. Some cheeky shellfish before he does make his way back towards his Krug camp by the looks of things. Might be getting a little bit of vision here, as there is a sneaky Gragas in the area. As Carrier finds Prince again. Yeah, he is. He's certainly got that finger ready.
Prince
on
like
the arcane shift button.
No,
Yeah.
it's a gold drink, a steel kettle he's in, and I don't even have Divine Sunred on. I don't want to get anywhere near that. And I really like effort roaming, but it does also mean that Prince needs to play incredibly respectfully. He's double summoners, but that was the same last time, so I completely understand him playing as respectful as he is. And
Wow, that's 6 plates, but they didn't pick up very many of them.
yeah,
Not so great here for T1. But most of them going over to Summit. He grabbed 4, that's all of the plates the Liv Sandbox were able to grab. As in comes Teddy. The carry is going to be absolutely fine. Let's see whether they can put some real pressure on Liv Sandboxes. As you can see, they are just going to vacate the area. They do not want anything to do with this, as Teddy slightly messes up the geometry there, but that's okay. We ain't going to hold it against him.
as long as he doesn't miss cannons. That's the most important part.
That is true.
That is unforgivable.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Does that mean that we're not forgiving Canyon for yesterday?
No. I mean, sure.
I don't think he was forgiving himself either. We heard that he was quite upset in the comms in his Akali game for missing a few of those cannons. The outcome was fine, though, as they were able to win the game. Still not sure who's the best Akali player on TWon Kia, as it's starting to turn into a bit of a Beatles situation, you know. Don't know who's the best drummer in the band, because they've got 3 of them that are playing that champion now.
That's an interesting question. Which role would be which band member? Because support, I'd imagine, would be drums.
Yeah, that's definitely Ringo.
Yeah.
Beryl is Ringo by far. I think that Showmaker and Canyon have to be Paul and John.
Yeah, I mean more like...
And who doesn't get to be a Beatles member?
In a general band setting, right? Like, which instruments would they be? Because you'd have, like, lead guitar and vocals, or probably, like, mid and jungle.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is.
Okay.
T1 just pushing down the mid outer turret. Brute force. I like it a lot. Wasn't too much of an option for Liv Sandbox because, of course, Fate was towards the bottom side, but they should be able to grab Shirley here, who will be under their belt. So Shelly and Shirley representing the same team. That's good. Not going to have too many sisterly arguments there, as Croco is just going to make sure that he gathers his Rift Scuttler. Carrier here in the mid lane, going to be completely comfortable as 4 members do crash on forward. Liv Sandbox might be able to return the favor here. Not going to be able to get the full turret with a charge or anything like that, but T1 missing a few members as Teddy does make his way forward. See whether Cuz decides to start anything up, and looks like the answer is going to be no as Carrier. Ooh, I could feel it. The Lee Sin syndrome coming on forward as Fate underneath this turret. Faker just continuing to put on pressure. Liv Sandbox, though, they do grab a bit of damage on the outer turret mid and then transition into a Drake. I do like the macro play, as Canna was topside, and T1 didn't have too many options to go for anything, as maybe we could see a bit of an attempt for the top lane, as Faker just tries to get Fate out of the area, and Croco is down here. So therefore, Teddy might be able to help with, you know, Canna taking down this top outer.
I'm genuinely impressed by Liv Sandbox's ability to claw their way back from like a 1.5k gold early deficit, because it's not traditionally where they excel, and it, as already pointed out, yet again, comes through the man in the bot lane, as Kana might be in deep trouble here.
Yeah, Fate gets behind him. That's going to be the odd. He was waiting for the To the Skies. I like it, but the hammer is going to come back Now Fate doesn't have his gap closed, but Effort does, and he's going to be able to push counter into that dead turret very comfortably. Uppercutted by the set, as that is the kick flash. Prince trying to get away, does have a lot of mobility as the Dawning Shadow comes forward, and Kerry is, of course, able to lock down that kill. Damn, this must feel so cool for Teddy. He's just watching his support go and murder people.
And it's individually, I think TWon is still looking really good when it comes to the plays across the map. And the sideline pressure Liv Sandbox at the moment clearly playing better. This is what feels like the third or fourth time that TWon, too far up in the side lane, doesn't respect the effort roams and gets punished appropriately. And while I'm really happy, I already pointed out, I was very excited to see Keria go and be on the skill expressive champion. You know, we know how good he is mechanically. We've seen him on so many champions.
It feels like I'm watching his Pyke play, but he's got more items.
Yeah.
It's actually awesome.
But also, TWon probably shouldn't be relying on that, because I think that they've looked good in also taking control of the overall game state and flow. And that is something that we're not seeing here right now. After that, a really nice teleport from Fade. I think Kana plays this as well as you reasonably can. You know, gets the phase rush proc. We see Cuz in the area, and I think he was like, maybe, but then when the moment effort shows up, you're like, no.
Yeah, I think he was
happened.
a really long time ago, to be honest. As we're going to check out the pro view of this kick flash and Lee Sin. Just, it seems like everything's magnetized. Damn, Kerry is super good at this video game, by the way. Also has high CS in the game. So for those of you out there that want to meme on supports not knowing how to CS, Kerry does not fit into that category at all. And Liv Sandbox are now looking to try and group up and see what they can get done in this mid lane. They've got so much vision on the top side of the map 30 seconds before this Baron is spawned. If they can win a big fight, maybe they can collapse on it. But there's a lot of control, but not around the Drake pit. That's going to be coming up in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Both of these teams, one Drake apiece, so the triple Ocean Soul is going to be terrifying, especially in the hands of TWon, who have a lot of extra utility with this Senna, and the Lulu will mean that it's almost impossible to win an elongated fight.
And both these two teams, interestingly enough, have somewhat similar plan when it comes to how they want to set the fights, because Liv Sandbox, you want to let your Ezreal poke a little bit, right? But you're really looking for the big engage at the right moment with effort going in, setting up for a big slam from Fate or Summit, finding multiple people and smashing into the wall. Whereas TWon, it's kind of the flip side. Their poke is stronger and their kite back is good, but their hard engage or their initial ability to force things the way they want it is not as strong, because you're kind of looking at like Diana going in and then getting the wild growth from Lulu, right, which isn't great. Like, you're not going to be super happy about that. And that means that TWon is going to be really diligent in how they set up around these objectives. And with the vision control that Liv Sandbox have, I think that makes it kind of hard. And then it's a question, can Kana lend enough poke by himself? Or does Keria just find like a monster kick on a non-Mega Na Summit or Prince, and they just win the fight off of that, which, based on what I've seen thus far, seems like a very real possibility.
Yep, could be a thing. Also, I like to see how Keria does play, because there is also the idea of playing like more defensively on the Lee Sin as well, because you can anti-set quite effectively as well. You know, he gets into the backline with his big flip, and then you just boot him out of there and say, no, not today. And then you can potentially win a fight from there, and also use the big set body to do a bit of extra damage with your Dragon Rage kick. Certainly an idea, but I expect that Kerry is just going to be jumping on in there trying to murder Prince in every single one of these fights, which is going to get easier for Prince as he does put together that Frozen Heart that should be coming in next, especially against the comp that TWon has, with the Jace and the Senna doing a fair bit of damage.
And you can give this one up as TWon. It is not a soul, it's not even a soul point, so you don't have to feel too bad about it based on Kana's positioning. I don't feel like they really want to contest this. And as TWon, I think you're fine scaling into the late game. Your Diana will remain relevant. Personally, I'd argue even stronger. Lulu is self-explanatory, and Senna, once Teddy gets more and more items, is going to be super good. Lee Sin, we've already seen, is not the champion that basically spiked on 1-2 items and then fell off. His dueling power, even till like very late in the game, remains strong, especially when you add in the Lulu and the Senna. So TWon can definitely play for scaling. I am curious to see how many souls Teddy is on, if he is on a decent track to hit that 100, 120 mark, because that's when the Senna goes from just being pretty good at setting up the rest of the team to becoming really oppressive.
Yeah, kind of busted.
Yep.
Not going to be there quite yet. Liv Sandbox probably happy to scale as well a little bit, but I think that it doesn't necessarily feel like a game where they should be, right? We've seen so many of these teams just happy to chill and not do anything with these Ezreal comps that have Udyr just running around, and I don't know whether it's something that you really want to put your eggs into the basket of, because they do just have mainly physical damage, and even then, not a whole lot. Like, this game is going to be about Prince and whether he can solo teamfight in the later stages, and it doesn't feel that good for Liv Sandbox.
Yeah, I think as Sandbox, you're just looking to like kill them in your big wombo combo rotation, right? Like drawn out fights against the Lulu, against the Senna, against the Lee with all the sustain that they have are just never really going to feel good. So you just find Canna and blow him up, or Teddy if he's out of position, Cuz if he goes into aggressively, and then kind of play from there. And T1 also don't have a traditional tank, right? They're going to be relatively beefy thanks to all the sustain that we were in the shielding that we mentioned, but in terms of just raw, I build I build armor and you're just kind of in an unfortunate position. It's not really the case. And as Liv Sandbox, I don't think that necessarily individually your character's still great, but this comp can just always win, right? It's what we saw RNG do so many times, and they performed it to such a high level that with a similar style of comp, like it didn't matter what the game state was, they could always find that Hail Mary, all-in, dive, engage, and just win the back off of a single fight.
Oftentimes they did have something like a Victor there in the mid lane though, so we'll see how Liv Sandbox does it without as much magic damage. As of course, you know, there is a bit of mix coming through from Ezreal and good old Udyr, but we ain't going to talk about
not a lot.
That is certainly not all that relevant, but if you guys want to be pedantic, we'll certainly mention it, because otherwise...
It is the internet.
Yeah, exactly. It's a dangerous place to have an opinion on. As T1 now towards the bottom side of the map, looking to set something up, but we can see there is absolutely no one here, wandering through the desert that is the bottom lane right now. Summit will get down here, but I don't know whether T1 are going to wait long enough. Let's see, as Jonas Strong thinks so as well. Bit of a Durnan situation.
As long as Cuz doesn't show, you're fine here. And he doesn't. I think. I don't know if Cuz walked into vision there, because you do see some pings going down. But obviously, if you show that, Liv Sandbox might make a beeline for the Baron and try to flip something there, maybe find a good re-engage. And I'm honestly impressed. Like, Liv Sandbox, sure, this is a slower-paced game, but they are playing well. They're setting up vision aggressively on the top side of the map, which makes any play towards Baron a lot harder. As Summit...
Yeah, maybe the Caster Curse comes in as the Moonfall comes on out. Oh, okay. Mega Gnar comes in at the right time as Canna's tanked up a little too much of that turret. Good Dawning Shadow, but not enough damage there from Teddy. Still, T1 will push Summit out of the lane, get his flash, and take down this inner turret. So you might be saying that the gank didn't work, but 100% it did.
The big thing is the flash being gone, as it really harms Summit's ability to go for those plays that we mentioned earlier. Will still have a lot of threats, as the Gnar always will do once you get to the teamfight stage. And Summit is one of those Gnars where we're like, he knows how to manage his Gnar bar. You know, we're well past the point where some of the Gnars just don't feel like they have any impact in teamfights, especially when bolstered by something like a set. And as you pointed out, Atlas, in the end, as the further we get into this game, all of Liv Sandbox CC is basically going to become how well can we set up Prince to just throw in autos.
Yeah, straight up.
It's going to look good, but they're not quite there yet. As just super well played by Summit. You know, the moment you turn into Mega Gnar. I thought he died there as well.
Yeah, he was definitely quite scared about the situation. Thankfully, he did have enough armor to get out of the way of death from the Dawning Shadow. So, T1 now pressuring in this mid lane. All 5 members. The K-Ram is upon us as Fate is roaming on up. Looks like Liv Sandbox just going to try and hold the line as best they can. Cuz not going to quite find that Crescent Slash or Sweep or whatever it's called. It's hard. It's Crescent something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think there's a few of those Crescents as Teddy's going to throw out a little bit of poke here. And now T1 are going to try and deny the soul point from Liv Sandbox. That's a great True Shot barrage though, as Croco moving into position. Teddy just getting under them mists, seeing what he can do. Shock Blast going wide as Carrier is just going to clear out this mid lane. And Liv Sandbox, they might just grab this. It looks like T1 do want to be able to get in there and deny it, as Effort is going to get tagged up, but there goes the Drake. Now T1, can they actually find a team fight as the explosive cask isn't going to find the joy that Live Sandbox want, unless they just wanted to disengage, which they are going to do successfully.
Really well played by Live Sandbox again, and it's T1 that have to basically face check through choke point, which is your worst nightmare against the comp that Live Sandbox have, and that's why they have to play that so slow. But I'm starting to get a little bit worried for T1. I think that they are able to win fights until very deep into the game, but if they take this scared approach, I don't know if you're actually going to be in a position to do so. And we talked about the lack of damage that is available for Live Sandbox. That is not going to be a problem if you find the Ocean Soul, because that beefiness is then just, you know, you'll take a little bit longer to take down T1, but you also will never die. So
I feel like a three stacked Ocean Soul is probably going to even out the lack of a Senna situation that they have, right, as far as sustain in these elongated fights. So Live Sandbox is going to be feeling much happier about that, which is, you know, why we were hoping that T1 could actually put up a fight for that Drake, but weren't quite able to get there. Their engage isn't necessarily comfy, of course, as it is going to rely on, you know, Carrier getting in there, Cuz getting in there, finding that fantastic situation with Faker's follow-up on the Wild Growth and things like that. It's not, you know, it's not one of those Malphite situations where it's all real simple. So we'll see how they do navigate these later stages of the game. Probably still happy to scale up forward, which is why T1 weren't going all in on a bunch of these fights. But you're going to have to make some plays at some point. They don't want to give over things like a Baron, and certainly the Ocean Soul. So that means that you can stop spamming Resident Sleeper soon, I think. Possibly 3 minutes. So keep it up for the next 3 minutes, and then definitely maybe think about stopping. It's up to you, though, of course. It's free internet.
you are watching the LCK, you know?
Yeah.
Anna.
Ooh. Fate. He didn't get the memo, as he's going to try and fight Canna here, but he's going to straight up lose out on that one. Just wanders on out. No worries at all.
The value of Phase Rush shown to us yet again, especially when combined with that acceleration gate. And death cap's done for Faker. Teddy, I think last time I checked, was on 103 souls, so he's getting closer and closer to that point of inevitable destruction as well.
Yep.
So T1, I'm gonna. This is the point where, you know,
Faker is so fast, by the way.
You've been taking a little bit of a nap, and that's okay. You know, it's not a bad nap. But the nap's got to be over, and starting the Baron as good a call as any.
Exactly. Live Sandbox, no vision of this area whatsoever. I believe they do have a blue trinket to throw out. They have some idea that this is happening, but it looks like it's going to be a turn from T1, as Cuz pretty happy just to continue fighting this Baron. There it is. Live Sandbox, the jig is up on T1, but they want this fight by the looks of things. As in goes Carrier, gets the kickback onto Prince. Not going to be able to just take him out, though, as Fate also in a bunch of trouble. Dawning Shadow comes in, Carrier gets over that wall. Prince has to flash to get himself out of the way, and now Carrier's the one in trouble. He's going to get taken out. The Ezreal starting to pop off in the fight, but as I say it, Canna just dives on top of him, and it's looking pretty over here. It's a triple kill for Canna so far. That wallop was phenomenal, but it's not going to be enough to help them here, as it's not the Penta, but it is the ace here for T1.
And a really nice fight by T1 there. And there we see the value of all these shields, all the sustain in these longer fights. The Senna and the Lulu make it so hard if you don't find the immediate team fight blowouts. Even with Carrier, really one of the big damage dealers, going down relatively quick. And here we can see, this is a drawn-out fight, right? It's basically 2 free skirmishes happening at the same time, and all Carrier needs to do is draw time. Cuz does the same. They chip them down slowly, but if T1 isn't caught in one big choke point and gets blown up instantly, that lack of damage that you were talking about, we see it here. And then it's the shields, the heals, the piercing darkness, and as Liv Sandbox is like, why aren't you dying?
Well, this is the ridiculous thing. You know, Teddy gets caught in a Mega Gnar ultimate, you know, and goes down to like 50% health. But honestly, he was turreting that entire team fight, just chilling out in the back line. And we're talking about Carrier because, you know, he was the one making all of the plays in the earlier stages, made almost all of them there, but bought so much time for T1. Him and Fate were doing the same thing, but just it was way more valuable when Carrier did it because he gets backed up by the Dawning Shadow. There is more damage available for T1 after one carry does manage to go down. As there's a kickback onto Summit. A bit of an awkward situation there as Dawning Shadow will get some extra damage. as Wild Growth comes through. Summit's trying to do his very best to stop Carrier from jumping on top of him. Good body block there from Effort as Carrier seeing what he could do. There's the Q. That one's going to land, but now Carrier might have bitten off more, but no, the rest of T1 are going to turn up as they're looking for Croco. Wanted to take him down. Cute little Q there, but not going to get into the enemy bases. Canna is, in the meantime, just trying to win the game as he's going to take down the mid turret, and T1 utilizing this Baron very, very well. And I feel like that point of inevitability has happened, and unfortunately for Live Sandbox, they were unable to get enough done in that mid game to really stop this T1 late game.
And both teams kind of were like, you know what, we're both going to scale, we're both happy to do so. And T1 clearly the one who were able to execute on that fight a lot better. And at this point in time, look at the range that Teddy has. A Hail Mary engage from Fate.
Oh yeah, Faker was unable to quite get there as Carrier is going to get taken down very, very low. Core Drinker is busted. He's still alive, for goodness sake, as Cuz gets out eventually. Faker has teleported in. That's a decent showstopper there as the GA has been brought out. The slow will land as well. Effort, actually not quite able to do so, as now Faker's the one in trouble, and he's running away. So, you know, a bit of yakety sax here towards the end. It might be. As now Cuz and Canna are running towards the Drake as Live Sandbox. Oh, true shot barrage. Cuz so close to getting taken down. His Zhonya's is on cooldown as well, as now Croco in the area. Canna spots him out. Effort moving on over as well. And with Prince here, this Drake is 100% over to Live Sandbox, and it's maybe not as over as I was thinking.
I don't know if that's necessarily enough in of itself, but the Ocean Soul is going to make this comp so much stronger. And you do have an Ezreal, right? Like, it's always winnable, and T1 getting caught in the trap of having a little bit too much fun. I think that this is completely fine. You have your entire team rotating towards the bot side, but as T1, like I said, this in of itself is okay. You have a lot of skirmishing power. You're ready.
나 우진이야.
But this right here, yeah, Faker isn't in this fight, and even if Fate doesn't show up here, like, this fight is already being lost, right? It's just a really nice engage from Live Sandbox, and Prince can just free it throughout the entirety of this.
Yeah, he was just completely not even looked at. I mean, Carry did last a little bit longer than I was expecting, but ultimately, like, look at Prince. Just like no one's really doing anything, and eventually, you know, Faker's caught on the wrong side of the team fight, and the Ezreal's able to come out clutch. So he now has very close to 6 items. Just needs to finish off Sherilda's here. So T1 do have to be careful. Remember, there's literally one thing that they have to do in a team fight, and it is kill Prince. They do that.
Yes.
Things should be K. They found out what happens when it doesn't happen. And hopefully, they're not going to make the same mistake. And for Live Sandbox fans, they're hoping to make sure that all of the disengage and all of the peel is going to be enough to keep Prince alive and win out on another one of these team fights. But it is starting to get into desperation territory. 5,000 gold the lead, but Ocean Soul is a big deal.
And as T1 fans, as you said, it's still a tense one. Like, you should be able to, but if Prince can somehow survive throughout all of it, look, the poke from Canna at this point is not going to be relevant. He can still provide a lot of value when he goes for the all-in. But as we can see here, it's like 2 Mystic shots, and Prince like, I am completely A-okay.
Yeah.
And I don't really mind what's going on here. And now T1 might have to wait 4 minutes for that Elder to show up, or they're going to go for the Baron in about 1.5 minutes. But Live Sandbox, I imagine they got to feel reinvigorated. As you really got to respect now, because we saw this happen with the Vayne.
Yeah, right.
Where it was Hanwha Life who was like, we're in a great spot. You take one bad team fight into a fed late game, or it wasn't even particularly fed, late game AD carry. And especially, that was the team with Ocean Soul, right? That went for an engage on it and lost. Like, this time the Ezreal was Ocean Soul, so you really need to blow him up in a single go, because he is more of Malmortius, he is Conqueror, both Summoners, and a Frozen Heart.
Yeah, he's definitely a big deal. I mean, T1 do still have, obviously, map control with 2 inhibitors down, but I just feel like Live Sandbox with this Ocean Soul, just have to see whether it gets put to the test, and the biggest test is going to be Prince. 6 items now done, and he is a big deal. Teddy's still to put together a couple of his remaining options. You know, Faker's getting there, but he also, you know, really only has 3 fully completed items. This Ezreal is a humongous deal. T1 still with the gold lead, still with a slight advantage. 7 seconds on this Baron. That is going to be the next point of contention. Summit's towards the bottom side, teleport in hand, and they have sorted out their minion waves. We'll see whether it's going to be enough to allow them to actually put on any sort of defense as the Baron's down to half. Looks like T1 are looking for a bit of a turn. There's a teleport in, effort already down to half. Good shock blast from Canna as Cuz gets himself out of the Baron pit. Baron down very, very low, but will reset. As now T1 set up the phalanx and look to see whether they can get a team fight started. Effort, a bunch of trouble as Carrier looking for these sonic waves, looking for a way to start off a fight, but lack of engage issue again could be a problem as in goes Fate. There's the showstopper as Liv Sandbox has started it on their own terms. Watch Prince, see whether he can keep himself safe as the Wild Growth's not enough. The Gnar is massive into the wall from Summit, and Fate is locking them down. Prince still at full health as Carrier desperately tries to get on top of him, but now desperately tries to get away from the fight. Faker's not going to be able to do it against this. Ezreal, unfortunately, has no mana, uses the last of it to get a bit skippy here and get away, but he's not going to be able to. As Summit's fighting Teddy, may not necessarily be able to win out here. We'll see who's going to be able to get on top, as Teddy has absolutely no mana, unfortunately, and it will be the Gnar that takes him down. That is going to be the ace, and I think Liv Sandbox may have just done it.
It was a one-game Atlas. The Nexus was open.
Yep. Yep, these things happen, right? Sometimes you take a fight towards the end, you feel like it's all done and dusted, and Liv Sandbox, they do not let it happen. Their win condition, that was Prince, was never under any threat in that last team fight, and Liv Sandbox, they stuck to their guns, and they will take game one against T1.
What a performance